Hello friends, you're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never thought a Wendy's job could almost get me killed. It sounds dramatic when I say it out loud, but I mean it, every word. People usually laugh when I tell them, the same kind of laugh you give someone exaggerating for effect. But there's nothing funny about what happened that night in Elkhart. Back then, I was 27, stuck somewhere between being too old for minimum wage and too broke to do anything about it. My name's Rachel Monroe, and I'd been working the overnight shift at a Wendy's off Highway 19 for just over a year. It wasn't supposed to be permanent. I dropped out of Purdue Northwest after my dad got sick, congestive heart failure, and moved back home to help my mom keep up with bills. He passed about 9 months later, and after that, I just stayed. I picked up the night shift because it fit around my mom's care schedule and my online classes. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. And honestly, the nights were usually quiet, too quiet sometimes. Our Wendy's was an older model, the kind with flickering fluorescent lights, peeling tile, and that smell of fryer oil that never really leaves your clothes. The locals came by mostly for their midnight frosty fix or after a long night at the nearby bowling alley. You learned to expect drunks, stoners, and truckers with more stories than teeth, but you didn't expect danger. At least I didn't. Not until that night. It was a Saturday in late October, the kind of night where the wind feels sharp and mean. The parking lot was nearly empty except for a single sedan near the edge of the property, idling under a broken light. My coworker, Eli Torres, was finishing the grill cleanup. He was 17, barely spoke above a mumble, and always wore his hoodie pulled tight like the world was something he had to hide from. I didn't mind him. He worked hard, didn't cause trouble. By 1:45 a.m., the last fry basket was rinsed, the lobby mopped, and Eli was clocking out. "You sure you're good, Rachel?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "Yeah," I said. "Go get some sleep." He nodded, one headphone dangling from his ear. "See you Monday." And then he was gone. I locked the lobby doors behind him, flipped the drive-thru to night menu, and grabbed my usual Diet Dr. Pepper from the fridge. I was bone tired. The kind of tired that makes your brain lag a few seconds behind your body. My mom had been up half the night before, disoriented and anxious, and I'd only slept maybe 3 hours. By 2:10, I was the only person inside. The radio played softly from the back kitchen, a local pop station with just enough static to make it eerie. I sat at the counter, scrolling through homework notes on my phone, trying not to doze off. Then I heard the door chime. It was a soft ding, the kind that meant the front door had opened. Only thing was, the doors were locked. I checked them twice. My first thought was, maybe Eli forgot something. I looked up, expecting to see him at the door, but the lobby was empty. I frowned, stood, and walked slowly to the front. The wind outside was blowing hard, rattling the windows and making the big Wendy's sign creak. The parking lot was still empty, except for that same car, the one half under the broken light. It was an old brown Buick Century, probably late 90s. Paint oxidized, back bumper cracked. The driver's seat was reclined, and even through the glare, I could see a silhouette inside. Someone was in there. I felt my stomach drop. I told myself maybe it was just someone sleeping it off, some drunk who couldn't make it home. I grabbed my phone and took a quick picture. No real reason why, just habit. I zoomed in, squinting. The man inside was sitting perfectly still, and then, as if he heard me thinking, he sat up. Our eyes met through the glass. Even from across the lot, I could see the whites of them, wide, unblinking. Then, slowly, he tilted his head, like a curious dog. I stepped back from the window so fast I nearly tripped over the mop bucket. I tried to laugh it off. My nerves were shot. I was overtired. I'd seen enough weirdos at 3 a.m. to know not to overthink it. But still, something about the way he looked at me didn't feel right. I busied myself restocking sauces, just for something to do. That's when I realized I wasn't actually alone. Sitting in one of the corner booths was Miss Evelyn. She wasn't really a customer, more like a local regular the night crew had adopted. 75 years old, lived in the care home half a mile down the road. Sweet lady, used to be a kindergarten teacher before her memory started going. She'd wander out sometimes, barefoot or still in her nightgown, and we'd call her facility to come get her. That night, she'd wandered in around midnight. I'd given her a cup of decaf and a crayon coloring book. She'd been quietly humming ever since, lost in her own little world. Now she looked up at me, head tilted. "Why's he staring, dear?" she asked softly. I froze. "What?" I said. "The man," she said, eyes drifting toward the window. "He's been there a while." My heart began to hammer. "How long have you seen him?" I asked. She frowned, like she was thinking through fog. "Since before the bell rang." Before the bell rang. I swallowed. "Miss Evelyn, did he come inside?" She smiled faintly. No. He just wants to know if you'll let him in." Before I could respond, the drive-thru speaker crackled. "Hey!" A man's voice. Deep, dry, like gravel dragged across pavement. I jumped. "Yeah," I said quickly, putting on my work voice. "Wendy's drive-thru. Go ahead with your order." Silence, then a breath. Long, slow. "Are you alone?" he asked. Every hair on my arm stood up. "What?" I said. "You shouldn't be alone," he whispered. Then, laughter. Low, crooked. I dropped the headset like it burned me. The speaker went dead. I moved to the window, hands shaking. The car was still there, but now the driver's side door was open. I couldn't see the man anymore. I locked the back door, then grabbed the phone to call 911. My fingers trembled too much to hit the buttons right. Before I could finish dialing, I saw someone moving outside. Not the man, but Derek, the janitor from the gas station next door. He was crossing the lot toward our dumpsters, pushing his mop bucket. Relief flooded me. I ran to the door and waved. "Derek!" I shouted through the glass. He turned surprised. I cracked the door open an inch. "Did you see a car?" "Old Buick?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, been parked there since midnight. You okay?" "Someone's been calling the drive-thru. I think..." Then he cut me off. "I saw a guy walk behind your building a few minutes ago." My blood turned to ice. "Behind?" I repeated. He nodded again. "I thought maybe he was one of your co-workers." "Can you stay here for a bit?" I asked. Derek hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah. I'll check the back lot." I locked the door again the second he stepped away. When I turned around, Miss Evelyn was standing, right in front of me. "Don't open it again," she said softly. "He's getting closer." I didn't even have time to respond, because behind her near the corner window, movement. A man stepped out of the shadows. Same hollow eyes, same cracked lips. His hoodie was torn, his jeans stained dark down one leg. He was maybe mid-30s, but his face looked older, sunken and drawn tight like stretched paper. He looked straight at me through the glass. No expression, no blink. Then he smiled. That smile was wrong. Not joy, not madness. Something else, like recognition. I screamed. He turned and bolted into the darkness. The cops showed up 12 minutes later, though it felt like an hour. 2 officers I'd seen plenty of times before. They swept the building, checked the back alley, the dumpsters, the field behind the gas station. Nothing. The car was gone. One of them, Officer Camden, came back inside to take my statement. "There was a break-in tonight," he said quietly after. "A few blocks over. Guy assaulted a woman, tore through her medicine cabinet. She got away." He paused, meeting my eyes. "Your description matches him." My throat went dry. "If your doors hadn't been locked," he said, "he probably would have come in here next." They left about half an hour later. Derek waited until they drove off, then gave me a little wave through the window before heading back to the gas station. When I turned around, Miss Evelyn was still in her booth, humming softly, her coloring book untouched. She looked up at me one last time before her transport van pulled up. "He's not gone," she said. "He just moved to a different window." I quit that job a week later. The managers installed new cameras, but they didn't add another overnight worker. Said it wasn't in the budget. Sometimes when I drive past that old Wendy's, now boarded up, sign half fallen, I swear I still see that old brown Buick parked under the light. And once last winter, when I stopped for gas down the street, I looked in my rearview mirror, and I swear for just a second, I saw those same pale eyes staring back from the car behind me. I keep the photo on my phone, the one I took that night. It's blurry, grainy, but if you look close enough, you can see him, sitting there, watching, waiting. Story 2. I never thought fast food would change the way I saw people. When I took the overnight job at the Wendy's off exit 49 in rural Missouri, I thought it'd just be temporary. 6 months, maybe a year. Just enough to save up some money and get back on my feet after things fell apart. But I guess life has a way of making you stay in the wrong places longer than you planned. I'm not a kid. I was 27 back then, and I'd already had a few rough years behind me. My name's Evan Mercer. I used to work as a warehouse loader outside Kansas City, but after my dad passed and my mom had a stroke, I moved back to Marion, a small town 2 hours south where I'd grown up. It wasn't much of a town anymore. Half the stores on Main Street were closed, and most people my age had left. My mom lived in a small assisted care facility off County Road 12. I visited her twice a week, brought her favorite lemon cookies, tried to make it look like everything was fine. But I was broke. Rent was due, gas prices kept rising, and I needed steady money. That's how I ended up at Wendy's number 1829, right off the highway. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet. We stayed open 24 hours, but after 11 p.m., it was drive-thru only, and most nights there were maybe 10 customers total. I worked 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. My manager, Lacey Dunn, usually stayed until midnight doing inventory, then locked up her office and left me alone. She trusted me, said I was one of the only night guys who didn't get high behind the dumpster or fall asleep in the break room. She wasn't wrong. I liked the quiet. I liked being alone. The night everything happened was a Thursday, April 14th, 2022. I remember because earlier that evening, Lacey and I had argued about the fryer filters. The oil had been overdue for a change, and she said corporate wasn't approving new deliveries until next week. I told her that was dangerous. She said I was being dramatic. We laughed about it eventually. When she left around 12:20 a.m., I stayed behind to restock sauces and wipe down the counters. I remember glancing out the drive-thru window and seeing nothing but empty asphalt. The Marion Gas and Go across the road had already shut its lights off. Beyond that, it was just the black line of forest stretching behind the lot, trees moving in the wind. That stretch of highway was lonely at night. 30 miles to the next town, and nothing but farmland and trees in between. By 1:30, I was done with everything. I heated up a leftover burger patty, grabbed some fries, and sat in the tiny break nook near the freezer, scrolling through my phone. That was when the headset beeped. The sudden ping made me jump. The sound was loud in the silence. I wiped my hands, adjusted the mic, and said, "Hi, welcome to Wendy's. Go ahead whenever you're ready." Silence. I waited. 5 seconds. 10. Nothing. Then, faint static, and underneath it, something that sounded like breathing. "Hello?" I said again, half annoyed. "You still there?" No response. Just when I was about to switch the headset off, I heard it, quiet but clear. "Don't say anything. Just open the back door." I froze. The voice was male, low, calm, too calm. For a second, I thought it was Lacey messing with me. She'd done that before, called the drive-thru speaker from her car just to freak me out. But something about this voice made my stomach turn. It wasn't playful. It was flat. Like whoever said it wasn't asking, he was telling. I stayed quiet, thinking maybe if I ignored it, he'd leave. Then he spoke again. Louder this time. I said, "Open the fucking door." The headset buzzed in my ear. My chest tightened. I ripped it off and threw it on the counter. For a few seconds, the only sound was the hum of the freezer. Then came a bang from the back. I jumped so hard my knees hit the counter. Another bang. Louder. Metal against metal. Someone was slamming against the back door. I ran to the office, locked it, grabbed my phone. No signal. That wasn't unusual. Service out there was spotty. But right then it felt like the worst thing in the world. I tried 911 anyway. Nothing. Then I remembered the two-way radio Lacey kept in the drawer. I flipped it on and tried calling the gas station manager across the highway. Static. Then, silence. The banging stopped. I waited. 1 minute. 2. Nothing. Finally, I opened the office door and stepped out, heart pounding so hard it hurt. The kitchen looked normal. The back door was still closed. Maybe someone was drunk. Maybe they realized they had the wrong door. I grabbed the metal broom handle we kept near the fryer and walked slowly toward the door. The security light outside flickered through the small glass window. That's when I saw it. Blood. A streak of it on the handle. A smear across the push bar. Drops on the floor leading out of view. My stomach flipped. I took a step back. Then the handle moved. Someone on the other side twisted it, slowly, and then stopped. I turned to run and froze. A man was standing inside the kitchen. I didn't hear him come in. He was tall, maybe 6 feet, late 30s, wearing a torn gray shirt soaked in blood. His face was pale, and one of his shoes was missing. There was a cut across his eyebrow and blood running down his arm. He held a small black pistol in one hand. "Don't scream," he said quietly. "Please." My throat felt like it had closed up. I'm not gonna scream," I said, voice shaking. He took a shaky breath and nodded. "I need your keys. And your phone. That's all. I swear to God, I'm not here to hurt you." I didn't move. Couldn't. "Keys," he repeated. His hand trembled. The gun wavered slightly. "Now." I fumbled into my pocket and handed over my phone, then pointed toward the hook by the register. "They're there. Take them." He grabbed them, keeping his eyes on me the whole time. "Wallet," he said. I pulled it from my back pocket and slid it across the counter. He looked at it, then at me. His jaw clenched. Then he saw the roll of duct tape sitting near the grill. He grabbed it. "Hands," he said. "Please, hands," he barked, louder this time. I obeyed. He wrapped my wrists too tight, then my ankles. I fell forward onto the tile. "I'm sorry," he muttered again. I need a ride." He pocketed my keys and headed for the back door. He looked back once before leaving, eyes hollow. Then he was gone. The store was silent, except for the fryer hum. I could hear my own heartbeat. I don't know how long I lay there. 10 minutes, maybe more. The duct tape was slick with grease and started peeling. Eventually, I freed one hand, then the other. When I finally stood up, my legs were shaking so badly I nearly fell. I grabbed the office phone, thank God it still had a landline, and dialed 911. This time, it went through. The dispatcher kept me on the line until help arrived. 2 sheriff's cruisers pulled up about 20 minutes later. They swept the building, found no one. The officers sat me down outside near the dumpsters. One handed me a blanket. The cold air stung my face. They asked what he looked like. I told them everything. One of the deputies, Corporal Danner, radioed something in, then came back with a grim look. "He matches a description," he said. "Name's Raymond Holt, escaped convict. Killed a man 2 nights ago near Bates County. Been on the run since my stomach dropped. He said he just needed a ride," I whispered. Danner nodded. "You're lucky, son." The last person he asked for a ride didn't make it. They found my truck around 6 a.m. in a ditch 20 miles east. He'd crashed it, bleeding out in the driver's seat, dead before they even got there. There was a newspaper in the seat beside him, one from a week ago, with a story about a prison transport crash near Jefferson City. His picture was right there. I quit the next morning, didn't even pick up my final check. I couldn't stand the sound of the headset beep anymore. That was 3 years ago. I still work nights, but I make sure I'm never alone. Every time I drive past an empty fast food place after midnight, I look at the back door, just for a second. I picture that bloody handle, the sound of that voice crackling through the static. And I think about how quiet it all was, how the world kept turning outside that little store, unaware that a man was dying in my truck, and I was on the floor praying not to be next. Sometimes I dream about it, the ping of the headset, the heavy breathing, the silence that followed. And when I wake up, heart pounding, I remind myself, isolation isn't safety, it's a test of how long you can stay calm while the world outside decides what to do with you. Story 3, I never thought a fast food job would leave me scared to walk alone at night, but that's exactly what happened. My name's Evan Cole, I'm 26, And up until last winter, I worked the overnight shift at a Wendy's on the edge of a small town called Clearbrook, Kentucky. The kind of place that feels too quiet, even during the day. You know the type. A handful of stores clinging to life around an old highway, faded billboards, and a Walmart that never closes. The Wendy's sat just off Route 9, tucked between an empty gas station and a pawn shop that hadn't had real business in years. Behind it was nothing but cracked asphalt, an overgrown drainage ditch, and a rusted fence that led to the woods. I started there because I didn't have much of a choice. Rent was bleeding me dry, and my day job at the auto parts store wasn't cutting it anymore. When my manager offered me the overnight shift, 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., Friday through Monday, I told myself it was temporary. Just for a couple of months, maybe until tax season. But months have a way of stretching when you're tired and broke. Working nights had a strange rhythm. The lobby closed at midnight, but the drive-thru stayed open until 1. After that, it was all cleaning, stocking, and prep for the morning crew. It was boring most nights, dead quiet except for the hum of the fryers and the distant rumble of semis on the highway. But I liked it that way. It gave me space to think. Our crew was small, just 4 of us. Marcy, our shift manager, in her late 30s, always exhausted but sharp as hell. Derek, the cook, early 40s, a divorced guy who talked too much about his Harley. Kayla, a high school senior, sweet but distracted, always FaceTiming her boyfriend when Marcy wasn't looking. And then me, the guy who mostly kept his head down and did what he was told. We weren't friends exactly, but there was a rhythm between us. We'd complain, joke, and sometimes sit out in the lot during breaks to smoke or sip terrible coffee from the lobby pot. The thing about working that shift is how isolated it feels. The world outside turns into a different place, emptier, quieter, like everything stops existing beyond the glow of the fluorescent lights. That night, the one I'll never forget, was October 28th, a Friday, just a few days before Halloween. We just put up some cheap decorations, a plastic pumpkin by the register, fake cobwebs by the drive-thru window. Kayla had stuck paper bats along the soda machine. It looked festive in a half-assed way. The air outside had that early winter bite, cold enough to see your breath. Inside, the heat vents clicked softly, and the smell of fryer oil never really went away. By 12:40 a.m., the last customer came through. A middle-aged guy in a beat-up sedan ordered 2 Baconators and a large Coke. I handed off the bags, forced a smile, and said the usual line, "Have a good night." When the drive-thru timer went dark, I pulled off my headset and leaned against the counter. Marcy was counting bills in the back office. Derek was humming quietly, cleaning the grill. Kayla was wiping down tables near the front, earbuds in, swaying slightly. I remember looking at the clock, 12:51, and feeling the heaviness of fatigue set in. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. I poured myself a coffee, bitter and lukewarm, and decided to step outside to grab my jacket from my car. My car was parked maybe 20 feet from the back door, just under the flickering security light. The back lot was uneven, full of cracks and weeds poking through the asphalt. I always parked close near the light. It felt safer that way. When I stepped outside, the cold air hit me instantly. I took a sip of coffee, lit a cigarette, and leaned against the hood. That's when I heard it, a soft metallic ting, like metal brushing against metal. I froze for a second, listening. The sound came again, faint but distinct. Ting, ting, ting. My first thought was maybe a raccoon or stray cat nosing around the dumpster. We'd seen them before, pawing through trash bags. I squinted toward the fence at the far end of the lot, but the light didn't reach that far. The darkness beyond it was total. I exhaled, smoke curling from my mouth. "Probably nothing," I muttered. Then it happened again, louder this time. A scrape, a rattle, like someone dragging a chain against the fence. I turned fully, eyes straining in the dark. The motion light above the door had gone off, so I waved my arm in the air. It flickered, buzzing to life. The pale orange glow spread across the lot, and in that half second before my eyes adjusted, I could have sworn I saw movement. Not an animal. Something standing upright behind the fence. I blinked hard. It was gone. I let out a shaky breath and rubbed my face. Jesus, I'm tired, I muttered, trying to laugh it off. I flicked my cigarette away and turned to head back in. Then came the sound. The fence rattled, hard. Not a rustle, not a scrape. It shook violently, like someone was grabbing it with both hands. I froze mid-step. The rattle turned into a harsh metallic scrape, as if something or someone was climbing it. I took one step back. "Hey!" I called out. My voice cracked halfway. No answer. Another second passed. Then I saw it. A shadowed figure, tall and rigid, on the other side of the fence. It wasn't moving like an animal. It wasn't crouched. It was standing straight, just beyond the reach of the light, motionless except for the way the fence shuddered. Every part of my body went cold. I bolted for the door, sloshing hot coffee onto my hand, fumbling for the handle. My fingers slipped once before I yanked it open, darted inside and slammed it shut behind me. I twisted the lock just as the knob jerked, hard from the other side. I stumbled back, heart hammering. The handle rattled again, metal scraping against metal. I could see it turning even though I'd locked it. I backed up until I hit the prep table. "Marcy!" I shouted. Her voice came through the headset radio, sharp and confused. "What's wrong?" "Someone's outside. They're trying the door." There was a pause, then footsteps. A few seconds later, Marcy appeared with Derek behind her, wiping his hands. "What the hell's going on?" she asked. I pointed at the door, breathing hard. "Someone's out there." They tried the handle, like hard. Derek frowned, walked over, and tried peering through the small window in the door. "I don't see anyone." "Because they ran when I came in," I said. Marcy gave me a look that was half concern, half disbelief. "You sure it wasn't a raccoon or something?" "No, Marcy, I know what I saw." "Okay," she said finally. "Let's check the cameras." We went to the office. The monitor was small, black and white, grainy as hell. She scrubbed back the footage. There I was, standing by my car, smoking, waving at the light. Everything looked normal. Then she played the part where I turned and ran. My heart sank. On the screen, there was no one behind me. No movement, no shadow, nothing at the fence. But when I slammed the door shut in the footage, the door handle moved, twisted violently on its own. Marcy leaned closer. "That's weird." Derek frowned. "Could be the wind?" "There was no wind," I snapped, a voice shaking. Marcy replayed it twice more. You could see the handle move clear as day. "Maybe the latch is loose," Derek muttered. Marcy didn't answer. She just stared at the screen, frowning. After a moment, she said quietly, "Let's just finish up for tonight. I'll have maintenance check the door in the morning." The rest of the shift dragged. None of us said much. Even Kayla kept her phone away, eyes darting toward the back door every few minutes. When I finally clocked out around 7:05 a.m., I was exhausted but wired. Derek lingered near the door, lighting a cigarette. "You all right?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, though I wasn't. "You think I imagined it?" He shook his head slowly. "No, I think you saw something. Just because it didn't show up on camera doesn't mean it wasn't there." I didn't say anything to that. Over the next few nights, I avoided going outside. We took trash out in pairs. Kayla started refusing to go near the back door at all. Marcy filed the report as a false alarm. Corporate brushed it off. Maintenance checked the fence. No breaks, no signs of tampering. But 2 days later, when I asked to see the camera footage again, Marcy said the file had corrupted during backup. That was the word she used, corrupted. By November, I transferred to a different Wendy's across town, one that closed at midnight. I told myself it was for the hours, for better pay. But I knew the truth. I couldn't stand that building anymore. The silence, the flickering lights, the empty lot. Even now, sometimes when I close my eyes, I see it again. That faint metallic rattling in the dark. That doorknob twitching on its own. And that shape, tall, motionless, waiting just beyond the fence line. Whatever it was, it didn't want food. It wanted in. Story 4. I used to think working nights was the easiest part of my life. No bosses breathing down my neck, no endless lines of impatient customers, just the hum of the fryers and the quiet company of fluorescent lights. That's what I told myself every time I clocked in for another graveyard shift at the Wendy's off Route 32 in Lakefield, Ohio. It wasn't much of a town, just a string of gas stations, 2 motels, a Dollar Tree, and a Walmart that closed at midnight. The kind of place people pass through on their way somewhere better. I'd grown up one town over in Cottrell, but moved here after my mom passed. I was 26, living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment above an old insurance office. Rent was cheap, the roof leaked, and the radiator made noises like it was alive. But it was mine. I'd been working nights at Wendy's for almost a year. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me enough quiet to think. My name's Aaron Caldwell, by the way. I guess that matters if I'm going to tell you this right. I wasn't supposed to end up here. I dropped out of nursing school after my mom got sick. She had stage 4 ovarian cancer, and those last months were hell, running back and forth between hospital rooms and home hospice. When she passed, I didn't go back. I couldn't. I got a job wherever would take me, and that's how Wendy's became my second home. On nights I wasn't working, I still found myself thinking about the sound of the fryers, the rhythm of the drive-thru headset beeps, the weird comfort in routine. It was lonely work, sure, but at least it was predictable. Until that night. October 19th, a Thursday, the kind of cold, windy night where the parking lot empties early and every sound carries. The wind kept knocking the plastic Wendy's sign against the metal pole outside. Clank, 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 like a loose gate in a storm. That night it was just me and Lena, 20, always glued to her phone, bright pink nails and a voice that could cut through fryer noise like a knife. We weren't close, but she was good company when she wasn't scrolling TikTok. And then there was Officer Trent Morris, an off-duty sheriff's deputy who always parked his cruiser near the drive-thru exit. He came in every night around 11 for coffee and a spicy chicken sandwich. Never in a rush, always polite. "Keeps me awake till shift change," he'd say. Having him there made the place feel safe. By 10:30, the dinner rush was gone. The dining room was spotless, chairs up, the soda machine humming like a steady heartbeat. I was restocking the sauce packets when Lena popped her head around the corner. "Hey, you got any extra napkins for drive-thru?" Some guy just ordered 6 Frosties. Who the hell needs 6 Frosties at 10:45? I laughed. Truckers probably. Sugar keeps them awake. She grinned, shook her head, and disappeared back to her station. The plaza outside was quiet, just the faint rumble of semis on the highway and the occasional flicker from the streetlights. There was something peaceful about it, and then the bell above the door dinged. I looked up, half expecting to see a late-night traveler or a couple of teens looking for fries. Instead, a man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, soaked to the bone. At first glance, I thought it was rain. It had been drizzling earlier, and he looked like someone who'd been caught walking in it for miles. But when he stepped into the light, my stomach went cold. It wasn't rain. His shirt, a pale gray tee, was clinging to his chest, darkened with patches of red that shimmered under the fluorescent lights. His jeans were stiff with dried blood, crusted in streaks down his thighs. His hands were red up to the wrists, trembling slightly. He looked right at me. His eyes were glassy, distant, like he was halfway between a dream and a nightmare. "Do you got something I can eat?" he asked softly. I froze. My brain tripped over itself. What? A sandwich. I just want a sandwich." He said it flat, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I tried to process what I was seeing. The blood, the way he swayed. His voice wasn't slurred. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't angry. Just gone inside. "Sure," I said, forcing my voice to sound normal. "What kind do you want?" He turned his head toward the menu above me. "That one," he muttered, pointing vaguely at the board. "Baconator." "Okay," I whispered, "coming right up." My hands were shaking as I turned toward the grill. The smell of grease suddenly made me sick. I glanced toward the back, where Lena was still scrolling her phone, one earbud dangling. I tried to keep my voice steady. "Hey, Lena, can you grab more pickles from the walk-in cooler?" She didn't look up. "We're fine, I just restocked." "Go grab them," I said, louder this time. My voice cracked. That got her attention. She frowned, confused. I made eye contact and mouthed go. Something must have clicked because she slowly stood and walked toward the back without another word. The man's blood was dripping onto the tile now. Drip, drip, drip. He didn't seem to notice. I wrapped the burger with trembling hands and slid it toward him. Here you go. He stared at it for a long moment before reaching out. His sleeve rode up, revealing a gash so deep on his forearm I could see layers of torn skin. I nearly gagged. You're bleeding, I said quietly. He looked down like he hadn't realized. It's not mine, he whispered. My blood went cold. What? I don't think it's mine, he said, staring past me now. His lip trembled. I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to what? I asked, barely above a whisper. He blinked hard as if he was trying to remember something that had already slipped away. His jaw trembled. Before I could speak again, the bell over the door chimed a second time. I nearly screamed, until I saw who it was. Officer Morris. He froze in the doorway, instantly registering the scene. His hand moved instinctively to his sidearm, but he didn't draw it. Not yet. He moved slow, calm, measured. Evening, he said softly. Everything all right in here? The man didn't turn around. Sir, Morris said, stepping closer. You're hurt. Why don't we sit down and get that checked? I didn't mean to, the man muttered again. I just wanted something to eat. Morris's eyes flicked to me. I could see the message in them. Stay still. He stepped closer. The man swayed, mumbling something under his breath that I couldn't make out. Then suddenly his whole body went tense. He spun. Fast. Something flashed in his hand. Small. Metallic. Morris lunged. The two of them crashed into the counter, knocking the burger to the floor. I screamed. The struggle was brutal and silent. Just grunts and gasps and the sharp crack of a cup dispenser falling. Drop it, Morris barked. Drop the damn knife. The man didn't listen. He swung wildly, slicing through air. Blood smeared across the countertop as they struggled. Then Morris tackled him hard to the tile, twisting his arm behind his back until the blade clattered away. Lena screamed from the back. Oh my God! It's okay, I shouted. It's okay! But it wasn't. The man was sobbing now. I didn't mean to, he whispered again and again, voice breaking. He tried to take my wallet. He tried. Morris cuffed him, breathing hard. You're done, man. Just stay down. The silence that followed felt like it lasted hours. All I could hear was the soda machine humming again. When backup came, 2 cruisers, paramedics, and a detective, it felt like waking up from a nightmare. I gave my statement 3 times. So did Lena. The man's name was Dylan Kessler. He was 34 from Toledo. He'd been staying at the Lakeview Motel, less than a mile down the road. Police found a body in his room. Another man, stabbed over a dozen times. The scene was bad. They said it looked like a fight that had gone out of control. Dylan claimed he was defending himself, but the evidence said otherwise. It was personal. He'd stumbled from the motel, disoriented, bleeding from a cut he'd gotten during the fight. He drove until his car broke down near the Travel Plaza, then walked the rest of the way. Straight into Wendy's, straight to me. The next few days blurred together. Corporate sent in trauma counselors. Management installed a new panic button behind the register and told us to stay vigilant. Like that would help. I tried to keep working, told myself I was fine, but every time the door chimed, my heart jumped into my throat. Every time a man ordered a Baconator, I saw his face again. Pale, shaking, his voice flat. Do you got something I can eat? I lasted another week before I quit. I got a job at a library in Columbus a month later. Day shifts only, quiet work, clean light. No friars, no blood, no bell above the door. Still, some nights when I can't sleep, I'll drive past a Wendy's and just sit there in the parking lot. The smell of grease and fryer oil carries through the air, and it takes me right back to that moment. The tile under my shoes slick with red, the sound of his voice cracking as they dragged him away. He looked at me before they took him out the door, eyes wild and lost. I didn't mean to, he said one last time. And the worst part was, I think he believed it. Story 5. I used to think working construction made me tough. Long days, dirt under my nails, shoulders that always ached. Those things made me feel older than I was. But nothing about swinging a sledgehammer or hauling debris prepares you for being truly alone. Not the kind of alone you get when everyone leaves for the night. I mean the kind of alone that makes you question if what you're hearing is real. I was 17 when it happened. Still a kid, really. I lived in a small town called Milford, Arizona. The kind of place where the only thing open past midnight was a gas station and a bar that smelled like stale beer. My mom worked nights at a nursing home, and my dad hadn't been around since I was 10. So when I started picking up odd jobs, flooring, drywall, demo, it wasn't about choice, it was about cash. I didn't have a car or a license, so I rode with whoever hired me. Most days that was Rick Dalton, my boss. He was in his early 40s, bald on top, always wearing the same stained denim jacket, no matter how hot it got. Rick didn't talk much, but he wasn't a bad guy. He'd been in construction half his life and said he liked having a young back to do the lifting. I didn't mind. He paid fair, kept to himself, and usually bought me lunch. That Saturday started like any other. I was half asleep when I heard the rumble of his old Ford outside my house. It was barely 7. My mom was just getting home, eyes tired but warm. "You sure you don't want to take a real job at the grocery store?" she asked, standing in the doorway in her scrubs. "This is a real job," I said, grabbing my gloves and water jug. "Besides, it pays better." She smiled faintly, brushing dust from my shoulder. "Just don't overdo it again. You came home last week looking like you'd been hit by a train." "I'll be fine, Ma. Rick takes care of me." Rick honked and I jogged out, climbing into the truck. He handed me a folded paper and a thermos that smelled like burnt coffee. "Got a big one today," he said. "Old Wendy's off Route 46 near Willow Creek. Been shut down since before you were born. They're tearing it out before they sell the lot." I yawned. "Same deal as last time?" "Pretty much. You'll be doing demo on the inside. Booths, counter, cooler. I gotta run a crew up to Flagstaff after I drop you. I'll be back around 6, maybe earlier if we finish quick." That should have been my first red flag, him dropping me alone 2 hours from home at a place with no power. But I didn't think twice. I was 17. I thought I could handle anything. The drive took forever. We passed miles of cracked asphalt and sunburnt desert. I stared out the window, half listening as Rick talked about rebuilding his Mustang. Every now and then, I'd see an abandoned sign or an old billboard bleached white by the sun. Civilization got thinner the farther we went. When we finally pulled into a lot behind the Willow Creek Wendy's, it looked more like a tomb than a restaurant. The red paint on the trim had turned pink, the drive-thru menu was sun-faded and cracked, and weeds burst through the asphalt. Even the windows looked dusty and blind. Rick parked and killed the engine. "Here's your list. Booths, counter, kitchen line, walk-in cooler. Don't touch the roof or signage. They're salvaging that." He climbed out, flicking a cigarette. I followed, stretching my sore legs. "You got water?" "Yeah," I said, shaking the half-gallon jug. "Good. Ain't no utilities out here. No cell service either." He looked at me with a smirk. "Don't go wandering off. Lot of snakes out this way, and don't be surprised if you see a coyote or two." "Got it." He nodded and helped me unload my tools. Crowbar, sledge, pry bar, radio, gloves, goggles. Then he climbed back in the truck. 6 sharp, he said. "If I'm late, Mike's crew will grab you." "Don't panic," I laughed. "I don't panic." He gave me a short salute, then drove off, kicking up a trail of dust that hung in the air long after the truck disappeared. The first few hours were fine, quiet, almost peaceful. The place smelled like rust and dust, that weird old building scent you never forget. I started in the dining area, yanking out the booths one by one. The vinyl cracked like dry skin, the screws stripped out easy. I stacked the frames by the back door. By noon, I'd torn up half the counter and most of the tile around the register. Sweat dripped off my chin, but the work felt good, the kind of tired that makes you feel productive. That's when I noticed the silence. Not just quiet, dead quiet. No birds, no wind, no cars. Just me breathing. Every now and then, I'd hear the building groan like it was settling, but otherwise it felt like the whole world had gone still. I turned on my little radio, hoping for some music, but it only gave static. I found one station faintly playing country, but it kept cutting in and out. I left it humming in the background and went to the kitchen. The grill was already half gone. I finished unbolting it, dragged the metal frame out to the lot, and came back for the grease trap. The air inside had grown heavy, warm, like the whole place was holding its breath. Then I got to the walk-in cooler. It was in the far corner, big, steel, industrial, the kind of door that seals shut like a vault. The handle had a faint smear of rust on it. I pushed it open. The air inside was cold. Not cool, cold. My breath fogged. There was no power running to the building, but the inside felt like a working freezer. I stepped in, thinking maybe it was just air trapped from the night before. The metal walls glistened with condensation, old shelves lined the walls, and a few cracked bins sat in the corner. I stayed maybe 10 seconds before the chill got to me. I turned to leave, but when I pulled the handle, it clicked tighter than I expected. My chest tightened. I pulled harder, and it gave way with a groan. The door swung open. I laughed nervously, rubbing my hands. "Yeah, no thanks," I muttered and backed out, leaving it open. By late afternoon, the sun turned orange over the hills. I swept the floor, stacked my tools, and sat outside under the old awning. My water jug was empty, my shirt soaked through, but I felt good. The kind of exhaustion that promised sleep. 6 came and went. I checked my cheap plastic watch. 6:27. No Rick, no truck. By 7, the horizon had turned red, and I started pacing. I climbed the ladder on the side of the building to get a better view. From up there, I could see nothing but empty land, just desert, brush, and one cracked highway disappearing into the distance. Back on the ground, the temperature dropped fast. The wind cut through my flannel, and the silence grew heavier. I tried my radio again. Static, I smacked it a few times until it coughed up a broken tune. Something that sounded like a woman's voice, but it faded out just as quick. Then came a thunk from inside. I froze. It wasn't a small sound. It was heavy, like something fell in the kitchen. "Rick," I called out, voice shaking. Nothing. I grabbed my crowbar and crept back inside. My boots crunched on broken tile. The moonlight pushed through cracks in the roof, pale and silver. The air smelled different, damp. Then came a sound I'll never forget. A whisper. Low, uneven, like someone breathing underwater. It came from the cooler. Every instinct in me screamed to leave. I stepped backward, eyes locked on that open metal door. The whispering grew softer, like it was trying to draw me closer. I ran, out the side door, across the lot, into the darkness. My hands shook so bad I dropped the crowbar. I crouched behind a pile of debris, heart slamming against my ribs. Minutes passed, maybe hours. I don't know. The only sound was the wind scraping sand against the walls. Then through the front window I saw it. Movement. A shadow sliding from the kitchen toward the hallway. Not fast, not slow, just moving. I pressed myself against the dirt, barely breathing. My teeth chattered from cold and fear. At some point, I must have closed my eyes because when I opened them again, there was light, bright and white. I shielded my face, certain it was morning. "Hey!" a voice shouted. "Rick!" He stood over me with a headlamp and a half-eaten granola bar in his hand. "Jesus, kid, you okay?" I nodded, breath shaking. "You were supposed to be here at 6. He frowned. "I thought Mike's crew was grabbing you." Mike thought I was. I didn't realize till after 9. Drove like hell, he helped me to my feet. My whole body trembled. "You look like you saw a ghost," he said, trying to joke. I didn't laugh. My eyes drifted toward the dark outline of the Wendy's. The front door was still open, the wind pushing it back and forth like a slow heartbeat. "Rick, did you know what happened here?" He hesitated. "Not really. Just heard some rumor. Place closed after some employee shot his manager in the cooler. Suicide after that. That's why they never reopened it." "Why?" I stared at the building, the steel door just visible through the window. It was wide open now, though I could have sworn I'd left it shut. "No reason," I lied softly. We packed up my tools and left. The headlights cut across the parking lot as we pulled away, and for half a second, I thought I saw someone standing by the old drive-thru speaker, tall, still, watching. I blinked and they were gone. I never worked alone again after that. Never went back to Willow Creek. Even now, years later, when I walk past a restaurant with a cooler door, my chest tightens. I make sure someone's nearby before I step inside. Sometimes, when the wind hums just right, I still hear that whisper, faint, cold, like it's coming from the back of an empty kitchen. And when I close my eyes, I still see that shadow moving down the hallway. Not rushing, not creeping, just waiting. Story 6, I was 9 when it happened. Back then, Wendy's was just a happy place for me. Fries, Frosties, and those plastic toys that always broke before the drive home. I never thought it would become the place that would change how I see people forever. But the story doesn't start at Wendy's. It starts with my parents. My dad, Mark Daly, was a data technician for the Regional Environmental Analysis Office in Wichita Falls, Texas. My mom, Rachel, worked in the same building as a water safety analyst. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills, and they were proud of what they did. They both worked long hours, the kind of late nights where the fluorescent lights hum like tired machines and the coffee pot never gets turned off. Back then, their office was inside a massive government complex off Route 47, an ugly, blocky concrete building that looked like a leftover from the Cold War. Cracked linoleum floors, paint that peeled like sunburned skin, and vents that moaned when the wind hit just right. The kind of place that smelled like a mix of dust and burnt wiring. And right across the street from it sat a Wendy's. That Wendy's was my second home for a while. On Fridays, when my parents worked late, they'd pick me up from school, grab dinner there, and then bring me to the office to hang out until their shift ended. I'd sit in the break room with my nuggets and Frosty, doing homework or watching cartoons on an old tube TV someone had dragged in from home. The staff at Wendy's knew me by name. They'd joke about me being the little office kid. Most of them were kind. High schoolers, college kids, and a few older night workers. But there was one man who wasn't part of Wendy's staff. And that's where everything really began. His name was Dale Warren. He worked security for the government building. Mid-40s, clean uniform, heavy flashlight always clipped to his belt. He was tall, the kind of tall that made ceilings look low, and had a slow, calm voice that made people instinctively listen when he talked. He wore too much cologne, chewed mint gum constantly, and always smiled just a little too long. He'd often stop by the Wendy's across the street, getting his late-night coffee or burger before starting rounds. Everyone there knew him. Even my mom used to chat with him sometimes. She said he was polite, respectful. My dad didn't like him. I didn't know why back then. The first time I met him, he knelt down to my level outside the Wendy's and said, "Hey, champ, what's the password tonight?" I laughed, not knowing what he meant. "You gotta give me the secret password if you want to get in." Frosty Power," I shouted. He grinned. "Good answer. You're cleared for entry to a 9-year-old. That was funny. Harmless." I didn't realize until years later that there's a kind of adult who hides behind jokes like that. For a while it was routine. Wendy's, then the office. But that one Friday night in October 2003, everything changed. It had been raining all evening. Not the nice kind of rain, the kind that feels like tiny needles hitting your skin, cold and relentless. My parents had been assigned to run some late data reports for an EPA audit. We stopped by Wendy's around 8:30 p.m., ordered our usual, 2 combos for them, 6-piece nuggets for me. I sat in our usual booth by the window, drawing in my notebook while rain streaked the glass. That's when Dale came in. His uniform was soaked, but he didn't seem to care. "Evening, folks," he said, flashing that too-wide grin. "Hey, Dale," my mom replied, polite as always. "Another long one?" he asked. "Seems like it," my dad muttered, not looking up from his food. Dale turned to me. "Got your nuggets, sport?" I nodded. "You ever seen a real security control room?" I shook my head. "Coolest room in the whole building. You like video games? Imagine a room full of screens. Cameras everywhere." My mom laughed softly. "That's classified, huh?" Dale smiled. "Not tonight. I'll show him the boring parts. Just 5 minutes, promise." She hesitated. She always did when people offered to take me somewhere, but the stack of papers beside her was thick and the deadline was worse. "Stay close, okay?" she said. "Yeah, Mom." And that was it. That's how it happened. We walked through the rain across the quiet parking lot. The building looked darker than usual. Half the lights off, one flickering near the entrance. He scanned his badge and we went in. The halls were silent. Only the hum of the fluorescent lights and the distant whine of the HVAC. I remember clutching my frosty cup, dripping water all over my jacket sleeve. "You scared of the dark?" he asked casually. "No." "Good. Brave kid. I like that." He led me down the east corridor, the one that led to the stairwell. Every few seconds, his flashlight beam cut across faded authorized personnel-only signs and peeling wall paint. We reached the basement door. "This way," he said. I hesitated. "Mom said, don't go far." He chuckled. "We won't?" "Just one floor down. You can tell her you saw mission control." I followed. My sneakers squeaked on the wet stairs. The smell changed the deeper we went. Old metal, mildew, and something electric, like burnt wires. At the bottom, he swiped his badge again, and we stepped into a dimly lit corridor. The basement was huge, lined with old offices, storage rooms, and unlabeled metal doors. He pointed down the hallway. "That's the boiler room. Ever see one?" "No." "Wanna?" He smiled, but this one felt wrong. Smaller, colder. Something about his eyes had changed. I should have said no. The room was louder than I expected, full of hissing pipes and low rumbling from the old boilers. He pointed to one of the machines. "That's the heart of the building. Keeps everyone warm upstairs?" I nodded, pretending to care. Then his tone shifted. "Want to play a game?" "What kind of game?" He reached into his shirt pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and made a quick paper airplane. "I throw it, you bring it back. Easy, right?" He threw it down the hallway. I laughed and ran after it. It glided past the door into another corridor. I bent to pick it up, and that's when I heard it. Click. The lights went out, pitch black. Not even the emergency lights. I froze. My heart started pounding in my ears. "Dale?" I called. No response. I felt around for the wall, for any switch. Nothing. I could hear something, though. Footsteps. Faint, slow, moving away. "Dale!" I said again, louder. Then a door slammed. I ran toward where I thought we'd entered, but the hallway felt longer now, twisted somehow. I tripped, dropped my frosty, and hit my knee hard on the concrete. The sound of rain outside felt miles away. I started crying. Upstairs, I didn't know it yet, but my mom had looked up from her desk and noticed how quiet it was. She asked my dad, "How long have they been gone?" He looked at his watch. "About 20 minutes. That's when panic hit. She called Dale's radio from the reception desk. No answer. She ran down the hall, calling my name. My dad followed, his face like thunder. They split up, checking every floor, every corner. When they reached the basement, it was nearly 10:15 p.m. My mom was yelling my name so loud it echoed off the walls. That's when I heard it. Faint, but enough to make me sprint toward it. "Mom! Mom!" I screamed. I pounded on the metal door. She opened it seconds later, flashlight beam hitting my face. She dropped everything, grabbed me so hard I couldn't breathe. My dad stood in the doorway, his fists clenched so tight his knuckles were white. Then he saw Dale. He was standing at the end of the hall, calm, collected, holding his soda cup. "Found him?" he asked. My dad lunged at him. "What the hell did you do to my son?" Dale backed up fast. "Whoa, whoa! He wandered off. I told him to wait by the stairs." But the look on my dad's face said he didn't believe a word. Security reported him that night. He was fired by Monday. That should have been the end of it. But 2 months later, detectives came to our house. They asked questions about Dale, about that night, about anything strange my dad might have noticed at work. Turns out Dale wasn't just creepy. He'd been caught stealing outdated computer hardware from the archives, some containing confidential state data. He was under investigation for tampering, possibly selling information. They never proved what he planned that night. Maybe he meant to use me as a distraction, or maybe he wanted something worse. I'll never know. My parents transferred offices a few months later, moved us to another district, but I still remember the smell of that basement, that cold metallic air. And I still can't walk into a Wendy's without feeling something tighten in my chest. People think horror means ghosts or monsters, but sometimes horror wears a badge and cologne. Sometimes it smiles at your parents and says, "Hey, champ, what's the password tonight?" And sometimes the scariest thing isn't what happens. It's realizing how close it came to being worse. Story 7, I was 22 when it happened. Back then, I thought I finally had my life pointed in the right direction. I had just moved to a small town called Lakeview, Georgia, after dropping out of community college halfway through my second year. My parents didn't take it well, but I couldn't pretend anymore. Classes were online, money was tight, and everything about that year felt unstable. When I got hired at a Wendy's off Highway 84, I didn't care that it was fast food. It was my first steady paycheck, and for once, I didn't have to ask anyone for help. I lived with my cousin Hannah at the time, a single mom who worked long nights at the hospital. She let me stay in her extra room as long as I chipped in for groceries and watched her kid, Mason, on weekends. It wasn't glamorous, but it was something. And at 22, something felt like progress. Our Wendy's was small, tucked beside a Sunoco gas station and a shuttered nail salon. Across the street was a used car lot that looked like it hadn't sold anything since 2005. The kind of town where everyone recognized your car before they knew your name. I started working evenings, from 3 to close. My manager, Tommy, was in his 40s and had this tired, easygoing vibe. He didn't yell unless something was really wrong. My co-worker, Luis, worked the fry station, and Amber, the other closer, handled drive-thru. We weren't close friends, but we worked well together. That night, the one I still can't shake, started like every other Thursday. I clocked in at 2:58 p.m. The air smelled like grease and sanitizer. Amber was finishing a drive-thru order while Luis was restocking fries. Tommy nodded at me from the back office. "Afternoon, Riley," he said, eyes on the computer screen. "Hey, boss," I said, tying my apron and pulling my hair into a bun. It was one of those muggy Georgia afternoons that makes the air feel heavy. I could hear thunder rumbling far off in the distance. As I walked toward the register, Amber sighed and leaned over the counter. "Some lady called earlier, real pushy about that new bacon maple chicken sandwich. Said she's driving over to talk about it in person." I laughed. "People really lose their minds over sandwiches, huh?" Amber gave me a look. "You'll see." I swear she sounded off, like way too cheerful one second and pissed the next. I brushed it off. I dealt with worse. People calling to yell about a missing sauce packet or a wrong drink. It was part of the job. Around 4:15 p.m., a beat-up tan Ford Expedition pulled into the parking lot. I noticed it right away because it parked crooked, taking up 2 spots near the front window. 3 people stepped out. 2 men and 1 woman. The woman was tall, maybe late 30s, wearing big sunglasses even though it was cloudy. Her hair was bleached blonde, and her lipstick looked smudged like it had been on all day. The 2 men trailed behind her. One was heavyset with a shaved head, the other skinny and restless, his fingers drumming on his phone. They didn't look like a family, more like business partners who didn't trust each other. When they came in, the woman smiled at me, wide and rehearsed. "You the one I talked to about the sandwich?" she asked, voice dripping with sugar. I froze for a second. Maybe. You mean the maple bacon chicken?" "Yeah, that's the one, sugar. You said it's dine-in only, right?" "That's right," I said, keeping my tone polite. "No biggie," she said quickly. "We'll eat here." She ordered 2 of the maple bacon sandwiches, a grilled chicken, and 3 drinks. As she pulled out her wallet, I noticed something odd. A red binder tucked under her arm with a black pen clipped to it. She saw me glance. "Oh, this? Business stuff." She smiled again, but her eyes didn't match the smile. I nodded, printed her receipt, and called the order back to Luis. When I brought the tray to their booth, the woman leaned forward, still smiling. "You live around here, honey?" I hesitated. "Yeah, kind of." She tilted her head. "You ever think about doing something else?" "You've got the look for it. Polite, pretty, sharp." I forced a small laugh. Thanks, but this job's fine for now. Oh, come on now, she said softly. I run a private cleaning business. Real high-end clients, pays 3-4 times what you're making here. Her tone was casual, but something about it made my stomach tighten. One of the men leaned forward. Yeah, you'd make 30 grand easy, barely any real work. We take care of everything. I shifted my weight back. I appreciate it, but I'm good here. Least you can do is take a look, the woman said, reaching for her phone. Let me show you the van. I've got a photo. Her smile widened, but her eyes looked empty. I stepped back. I can't right now. I'm on shift. Her jaw twitched, just for a second. Then she smoothed her hair, put on that same fake grin. No worries, sweetie. Maybe next time. They finished, eating in silence. The two men whispered occasionally, but I couldn't hear what they said. Every time I passed by, the woman's eyes followed me. When they left around 5 o'clock, she turned at the door, waved and mouthed, "See you soon." Everything cool? Luis asked as he scrubbed the grill. Yeah, I said, forcing a laugh. They offered me some shady job. Cleaning business or something. Luis raised a brow. You gonna take it? Hell no, he shrugged. Probably some scam. That's what I told myself too, until that night. Luis's older brother picked us up after close. When I mentioned the weird offer, his brother went quiet, really quiet. Then he pulled over on the shoulder, put the truck in park, and turned around. That's not a cleaning job, he said. That's a trafficking setup. They say it's easy money, promise rides, talk about being discreet. It's all the same pitch. You're lucky you didn't walk out with them. I felt my throat close up, my skin prickled. I didn't know. He cut me off gently. Most don't. Just be careful. They scout places like this. Gas stations, diners, fast food joints, always looking for girls working alone. I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that woman's painted smile, heard her voice saying, "You'd be perfect." The next morning, I told myself to shake it off. People exaggerate things all the time. Maybe it really was a scam or an MLM. By 11:30, the lunch rush was starting. The place was busy, noisy, comforting in a way. Until I noticed him. A man mid-40s walked in wearing a button-up shirt and pressed khakis. Neat, calm, too calm. He ordered a black coffee. That's it. Then he sat down at the same booth the woman had used the day before, and he had the same red binder. I froze. My hands went numb. He didn't pull out a phone, didn't look at the menu. He just opened the binder and started writing. Occasionally, he glanced toward the counter, toward me. I pretended to refill napkins, but every time I looked up, his eyes were there. After an hour, I heard him muttering into his phone. His voice was low, but I was close enough to catch the fragments. Yeah, she fits. No, she didn't bite yesterday. Still watching her. Need another place closer to the water. My heart pounded. I stepped back and rushed to the kitchen. Luis, I whispered. The guy in the front. He's with them. The binder. The phone call. He said they're watching Luis peek through the small window in the kitchen door. Shit, he muttered. What do we do? He thought for a second. You stay near me. I'll tell Tommy. We stayed close. I pretended to clean the tables near the front, just in case. Eventually, the man stood, closed the binder, and walked out. He didn't look back, but when I stepped to the window, I saw the tan Expedition parked across the street. It started up, followed him out of the lot, and disappeared into traffic. I quit the next day. No explanation, no 2 weeks. Tommy didn't even argue, just nodded slowly, like he'd seen it before. I packed my things and left Lakeview within a month. I told myself I was being paranoid, but deep down I knew better. Sometimes I still see that red binder in my dreams, the pen clipped to the side, the faint syrupy voice saying, "You'd be perfect." I wonder how many girls didn't get the warning in time. Now every time I close up a place or walk through a dark parking lot, I still check my reflection in the glass doors. Not for my face, but for eyes watching from somewhere nearby. Because they were watching, and I don't think they ever really stopped. Story 8. I was 22 when I started working at the Wendy's off Highway 19. right on the edge of Brookhaven, North Carolina. It wasn't the kind of job you bragged about, but it paid rent and kept me busy. Two things I needed badly back then. After my mom passed from a sudden heart attack the year before, everything in my life fell into quiet disarray. My stepdad moved away, sold the house, and I ended up crashing on my cousin's pull-out couch while trying to figure out what came next. I wasn't in school anymore. I dropped out of the community college halfway through my first year. Too many shifts at the grocery store, too many nights of feeling like I was stuck in place. When I saw the hiring sign at Wendy's, I figured, why not? It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. And for a while, I thought maybe routine would help me feel normal again. I didn't realize how much that place would change me. Fridays were usually steady. Truckers passing through, families from the nearby movie theater, the same group of teenagers ordering Frosties and fries they never finished. But that particular night in August, things were unusually slow. The rain had come and gone in quick bursts all day, and by the time the dinner rush was over, the parking lot outside shimmered in the glow of the streetlights, puddles reflecting red and white from the neon Wendy's sign. Inside, it was just me, Kayla on drive-thru, and Marcus in the back on grill. We were closing in about an hour. I was wiping down the front counter when the door chimed. A man walked in. At first, nothing about him screamed danger. He looked mid-20s, maybe late, wearing a washed-out black hoodie, jeans, sneakers. His beard was patchy, like he hadn't bothered to shave for a week. But there was something about how he carried himself. Shoulders tense, eyes that didn't seem to move the way normal eyes did. He kept them too still. "Evening," I said automatically, tossing the rag into the sanitizer bucket. "Welcome to Wendy's. You ready to order?" He didn't respond right away. He looked up at the menu board, then back at me. "What's the cheapest thing you got?" His voice was low, rough, almost bored. "You can do a 4 for $4, I said. "Burger, nuggets, fries, drink. It's probably your best deal." He gave a slow nod and pulled a folded 5 from his wallet. His fingers trembled slightly, and I noticed his nails were dirty, almost black underneath. "You work here long?" he asked. "Couple months," I said. "Why?" He shrugged. "Just asking." "You don't seem like someone who'd stay here long." I forced a polite smile. "Yeah, well, you never know." He handed me the money. His thumb brushed my palm longer than necessary. A small thing, but it made my stomach twist. "Cassie," he said, reading my name tag slowly, like tasting it. "Pretty name." "It's Casey," I corrected quickly. "With a K." He tilted his head slightly, smiling in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Still pretty." I busied myself with the register, pretending not to hear that. Marcus's voice came through the kitchen window. "Order up, Casey." The man waited by the counter instead of taking a seat. When I slid the bag toward him, he leaned closer, close enough that I smelled the faint scent of engine oil and sweat. "You ever feel like you're stuck?" he asked quietly. I blinked. "What?" "Like no matter what you do, you can't move forward." I forced a polite laugh. "You want ketchup with that?" He didn't answer, just stared at me for a few seconds before finally taking the bag and walking toward the dining area. He didn't leave. He sat down in the booth directly across from the counter, facing me. For the next half hour, every time I glanced up, his eyes were on me. Not just casual looks, long, unblinking stares. He barely touched his food. He just sat there, tearing fries apart one by one. Kayla leaned over from drive-thru. "Girl, that dude's been watching you nonstop." "I know," I muttered. "You want me to call Marcus up here?" "I'm fine," I said, even though I wasn't. By 9:40, he was still there. I was trying to focus on wiping down trays, counting register bills. Anything to look busy, but my hands were trembling slightly. When I finally looked up again, he was gone. "Did you see him leave?" I asked Kayla. "Nope. Must have slipped out while I was doing drive-thru." I tried to laugh it off, but I could still feel that tension crawling under my skin. At 10:02, I clocked out. Marcus was still finishing grill cleanup, and Kayla was mopping. "You sure you're good to walk out?" Marcus asked. "It's pretty dark out there." "Yeah, I'm fine," I said. "It's just across the lot." The night air hit me like a damp blanket, warm, heavy, and still. My car was parked under the far light pole. The lot was empty except for the trash bins behind the store. Halfway there, I heard a sound. Something metallic, like a can being kicked. I froze, keys tight in my fist. Then I saw him, standing near the dumpster. Same hoodie, same beard. He stepped forward slightly and the light caught his face. "Hey," he said, voice calm, almost friendly. "You got a second?" My throat tightened. "No, I'm off work. Just want to talk." "You seem nice before I'm leaving," I said, backing up. He took another step forward. "You don't gotta be scared." That's when the door behind me swung open. "Yo, back up, man!" Marcus yelled from the doorway. The man froze, eyes flicking from me to Marcus. Then without a word, he turned and walked off across the lot, disappearing into the dark. I didn't sleep that night. 2 days later, the phone call started, blocked numbers. At first, just breathing, slow, deliberate. Then a whisper. "You always smile when you're nervous." I hung up. The next night, another call. "You looked pretty scared outside the other night." I threw my phone across the room. I told my manager, and he told me to report it. The local police came, took a statement, but without a number or face, there wasn't much they could do. They told me to stay aware and avoid being alone at night. For the next week, I was never alone at closing. Marcus or Kayla always walked me to my car. Still, every time I looked out the window after dark, I half expected to see him standing under the streetlight again. Then one night after my shift, I found something under my windshield wiper, a folded piece of lined paper. 4 words written in thick black marker. "You can't avoid me." The police took it more seriously this time. They even checked the cameras, but the system hadn't been recording properly for days. For a while after that, it was quiet again. Weeks passed. I tried to convince myself maybe he'd moved on. Then on a Sunday morning, I got a text from an unknown number. "You quit Wendy's? I miss our talks." I blocked the number immediately, heart pounding. I called the detective assigned to my case, and they told me to stay somewhere safe. I packed a bag and went to my cousin's place 2 towns over. 4 days later, I had to run errands. I went to the Home Pro Hardware on the east side of town to pick up paint for my cousin's porch. It was broad daylight, 2 p.m., store full of people. I told myself nothing bad could happen here. I was halfway down the paint aisle when I heard a voice behind me. "Hey, Casey." I turned and my whole body went cold. It was him. Same hoodie, same unkempt beard. He smiled. "You remember me, right?" "Stay away from me," I said, voice shaking. "You shouldn't ignore people, Casey." "It's rude." I took a step back. "Leave me alone or I'll call the cops." He tilted his head. "They didn't help you last time, did they?" "Get away from me," I shouted. That got attention. A man down the aisle looked over. An employee started walking toward us. The stranger's face darkened. Then he smiled again, slowly, deliberately. "You'll see me again." Then he walked away, right past the worker, out through the front doors before anyone could stop him. Police reviewed the footage this time. They caught his face clearly. He wasn't local. They said his plates came back to a man named David Renner, wanted in another state for stalking and harassment. There was a warrant out for him now. I should have felt safe, but I didn't. I started seeing things. Maybe not him, but shapes that look like him. Shadows that move behind cars. A gray hoodie at a gas station that made me drive off without paying. Even now, staying at my cousin's, I hear noises outside sometimes. Soft footsteps on the porch, the creak of the mailbox. Every time I go to sleep, I picture him standing under the Wendy's parking lot light, waiting. Because some people don't just want to be noticed. They want to be remembered, and they'll do anything to make sure you don't forget them.